that I get along with very good. There's a handful of us that get along with each other real well. And, you know, but it doesn't give the Absaloms of the world. It does not give the Absaloms of the world, because you know what? You got to take, what does it say, the log out of your own before you take the splinter out of somebody else's. And I look at this from a different vantage point than what I am teaching it from. So I'm just going to come out with that one and throw it out there for your consideration this morning. It's happening all the time. Absaloms are looking. And let me tell you what Absaloms are looking for. This could be in your family. This could be in your job. This can be in your church. They're looking for weak leadership. That's what they're doing. We had the conversation just recently about Jezebel. Oh yeah, Jezebel this and Jezebel that. Well, why Jezebel? Do you know why Jezebel? Well, both in the Old Testament and the New Testament, Jezebel, I don't know, captured, really ripped off the authority, because in the Old Testament, Ahab allowed her. Ahab brought her in. He brought her into Israel, and she brought her false prophets right along with her. That Elijah, had to deal with the false prophets. And then, I don't remember what his name is, had to deal with Jezebel herself. In the New Testament, it still talks about that Jezebelian spirit. And the was a second or third chapter, I think it's the second chapter of Revelation, to where Jesus tells the angel of the church of Thyatira, I have this against you because you have allowed her. So whenever Jezebel begins to get her grips on the throne, whenever Jezebel gets her hands on the steering wheel, it's because somebody lets her. So we have a responsibility to go along with it. And Absalom was of that. He was of that spirit. That he wants to come in and he wants the driving. He wants to, well, leave the driving to me. He says, I'll take it over. So what has happened as we get into the 19th chapter, what has happened is that the war had started between David and Absalom had died, and David is weeping for Absalom. And Joab, was it? That's his name. Joab has to tell David, your all your people are gonna leave you. You care more about your dead son than you do about your live sons. You care more about Absalom and the death than you care about your army. And people are going to start leaving you if you don't go out over there and you don't, comb your hair, wash your face, put a little bit of makeup or whatever you have to do, and get over there in front of the cameras and say, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the king. And we even had situations where they had to speak to the elders to restore David to the kingship of Israel after this death of Absalom. But here we get into verse 16. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. Shimei, the son of Gera, a Benjamite who was from Bahurim, hurried and came down with the men of Judah to meet David. There were 1,000 men of Benjamin with him, and Ziba, the servant of the house of Saul, and his 15 sons and 20 servants with him, and they went over the Jordan before the king. Now, something kind of key that you have to look at is when you start, especially when it has something to do with King David, the Benjamites, the tribe of Benjamin, were not always real happy with David because Saul was from Benjamin, and David was from the tribe of Judah. So it's kind of like if, we have a, we have a politician that might be from our area, in a prominent position within the state or maybe even nationwide. Let's say that we would have a politician that would be very prominent statewide, and he would be from Las Vegas, San Miguel County. Oh, we'd be all proud that this guy is over there. He's sitting there, and he's. But how about the guy that he replaced? He was from another part of the state, and that's kind of what's going on. So anytime you start, and Shimei was a Benjamite. Also, there were 1,000 men of Benjamin with him, and Ziba the servant of the house of Saul and his 15 sons. And so they're kind of making peace with David, the Benjamites, right about now. A ferry boat went across to carry over the king's household to do what he thought good. So over the Jordan, now Shimei, the son of Gera, fell down before the king when he had crossed the Jordan. He said to the king, "Do not let my lord impute iniquity to me, or remember what wrong your servant did on the day that my lord the king left Jerusalem, that the king should take it to heart. For I, your servant, know that I have sinned. Therefore here I am, the first to come today of all the house of Joseph, to go down to meet my lord the king." Who was Shimei? Shimei was the guy who was throwing stones and kicking up dust and cussing out David and his men as they were leaving Israel when Absalom came to Jerusalem. See, Absalom started and took up his insurrection in Judah, okay, but not in Jerusalem. But when he decides that he's going to Jerusalem to take over, David and everybody flee, but now Absalom is done with, and everybody's coming back. And Shimei, who was the guy who was trashing David, on the way out is the first way to come in, and he is laying down before, and he's throwing dust on his head and saying, "Please forgive me." Verse 21 says, "But Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, answered and said, Shall not Shimei be put to death for this, because he cursed the Lord's anointed?" And Abishai and his brother Joab, all they knew was capital punishment. All they knew is, well, let's lop their head off. I'll just do it right now. I wanted to do it when we're leaving, and now that we're coming back victorious, I'll do it again. Let's just finish this. And David said, "What I have to do with you sons of my sister?" Yeah, Zeruiah was David's sister. So these are his nephews. And man, all they know is the sword. All they know is force. All they know is violence. David knew violence. The reason that David did not build the temple, that Solomon, his son, built the temple, was because he was a man of war and he had spilled much blood. David knew war. And so did Abishai, and so did Joab. But they could not balance their lives out the way that David could, and David knew that there was a time for everything under the sun, even though that his son was going to write that later, another son, S-U-N-S-O-N, he was going to write it later. And David knew there was a time for war, there was a time for peace. David tells them, "What have I to do with you, sons of Zeruiah, that you should be adversaries to me today?" He says, "You're my enemy. You're an enemy today." What do you mean? I've been with you. I went out with you into the battle, and I came back with you, and I've been with you. And no, dude. You're an enemy to the purposes and the plans and the things that God has planted in my heart. All they knew was violence. David knew violence. David killed people. David killed a lot of people. But David knew when it was time to put the sword away, and the sons of Zeruiah did not. It was all about warfare. It was all about, there's a time for everything under the sun, living a balanced life. What have I to do with you, sons of Zeruiah, that you should be adversaries to me today? Because any adversary of God was an adversary of David. Shall any man be put to death today in Israel? For do I not know that today I am king over Israel? You think you're going to prove my kingship by lopping this guy's off, this little one man, just this little dude that's going, hey. Therefore the king said to Shimei, you shall not die. And the king swore to him. Here's Selah taking us up to weather.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first How many times have I seen your mercy? How many times have I received your grace? Oh, Lord, indeed, been there 10,000 years. Bright shining as the sun, with countless days to sing God's praise. Then when we first begun, and when we first begun,
That was Selah, 30 minutes after the hour, singing Amazing Grace. It's your weather time for San Miguel County. Mostly sunny today. High around 49 degrees with a southwest wind 8 to 25 and gusts up to 36 miles per hour. Tomorrow, windy, and they are calling for an 80% chance of snow, maybe an inch or so, with a high of 41 degrees and gusts up to 31 miles per hour. And on Friday, 40% chance of scattered snow showers, high around 33, northeast wind at 12 miles per hour. So we could get something out of this. They're not asking, for a lot of snow coming our way. We'll let you know. Also let you know, Robertson boys are playing tonight here at Robertson at 6 o'clock for this quarterfinal round of the state tournament here. So, on. Anyway, Chana's with us this morning. Tommy and Andrea are out there. Martin Uma is there. Corrine and Mike. Steve is out there. Thank you very much. We're going to go back into our scriptures for today. We are in 2 Samuel chapter 19. So The sons of Zeruiah, dude, all they know is lop their head off. All they know is let's cast the devil out of them right away. Just nothing but warfare, warfare. Oh, there's a time. There's a time and a season for everything under the sun, boys. What have I to do with you? Therefore, and this is where we left off, verse 23, therefore the king said to Shimei, you shall not die as the king swore to him. So he says, I give you my promise as the king that you're not going to die. Now, Mephibosheth, the son of Saul, came down to meet the king. You know, and here's another guy that's looking for a little bit of mercy this morning. Make sure that, hey, when David crosses over, Dave, I'm going to be there head of the line. Now, Mephibosheth, the son of Saul, came down to meet the king, and we understand the story of Mephibosheth, that he had been, the land had been restored to him because he was one of Saul's and one of Jonathan's. Saul was his grandfather, Jonathan was his father. He had not cared for his feet, nor trimmed his mustache, nor washed his clothes from the day the king departed until the day he returned in peace. And so it was. So there he is in the crowd, a little stinky, but he's there, and showing David that, hey, I was in mourning, brother. I wasn't get ready to take over your throne. So it was, when he had come to Jerusalem to meet the king, that the king said to him, why did you not go with me, Mephibosheth? Why did you stay back? And he answered, O my lord the king, my servant deceived me. Who was the servant? Servant was Ziba. Unless Ziba's sons or one of the others that had been appointed. But, remember that Ziba. Anyway, he says, O Lord my king, O my lord, O king, my servant deceived me. For your servant said, I will saddle a donkey for myself, that I may ride on it and go to the king, because your servant is lame. And he has slandered your servant to my lord the king. But my lord the king is like the angel of God, therefore do what is good in your eyes. Ziba took off on me, man. Ziba left me hanging. You know that I'm lame. You know that I can't just go out over there and get a horse or a donkey for myself and saddle him up and take him out there. And to me, I'm pretty sure we're talking here about Ziba, but it doesn't tell us specifically who this servant is. I will saddle a donkey for myself that I may ride on it and go to the king. And he left me there. And look I haven't even washed my clothes. I haven't even trimmed my mustache. Nobody was there even to care for my lame feet. He has slandered your servant to my Lord. He told you that I had stayed behind, that maybe this was going to be my chance, and I would steal what Absalom was trying to steal from you. I mean, all kind of intrigue could have been going on there. But he says that wasn't the story. He slandered your servant. But my lord the king is like the angel of God. Therefore do what is good in your eyes. And he says, I'll put myself in your mercy, brother. Whatever you want to do, King David, to me. If you think that I was trying to take your throne, if you think I was trying to restore the line of Saul, go for it, man. Do whatever you need to do. For all my father's house were but dead men before my lord the king, yet you set your servant among those who eat at your own table. Therefore, what right have I still to cry out any more to the king? He says, when you found out about me, I was a nobody from nowhere, and you brought me into your house. You let me eat. You restored all the lands to me. You got my servants working on the properties and taking care of all that stuff. What right have I still to cry out anymore to the king? He says, I don't have any aces left up my sleeve. So the king said to him, why do you speak any more of your matters? I have said, you and Ziba divide the land. So we're going to give half the land to your servant, and you're going to keep the rest of it. Then Mephibosheth said to the king, rather let him take it all, inasmuch as my lord the king has come back in peace to his own house. So Mephibosheth said, I don't even need that land. I can even work it even if I wanted to give it all to him. All I want to do is just get the crumbs off of your table. That's good enough for me. And Barzillai the Gileadite came down from Rajalim and went across the Jordan with the king to escort him across the Jordan. Okay. So this guy is from the other side, from the east side of the Jordan, Barzillai. Now, Barzillai, verse 32, was a very aged man, 80 years old. He had provided the king with supplies while he stayed at Mahanaim, and he was a very rich man. So Barzillai was taking care of David. He was making sure that David and everybody that came with him didn't starve, and they had places to stay. And, he treated David good when David went out into the wilderness running away from Absalom. And Barzillai comes down with it. Barzillai crosses over the Jordan. Now, this crossing over the Jordan, it was kind of like a good thing. Like our prayer line at 505-310-9658. It's a good thing for you. And Barzillai had taken care, and Barzillai's coming over in the procession back to Jerusalem. And the king said to Barzillai, come across with me, and I will provide for you while you are with me in Jerusalem. He says, come on, man. You took care of me out in the wilderness. I'm going to take care of you, old man. Barzillai said to the king, how long have I to live that I should go up with the king to Jerusalem? Today I'm 80 years old. Can I discern between the good and the bad? What good am I going to do with you over there? What's this old man going to do? He says, I can't help you. I can't help you out make decisions. Can your servant taste what I eat or what I drink? Can I hear any longer the voice of singing men and singing women? Why then should your servant be further burdened to my lord the king? He says, hey man, I'm just living a simple existence for the last few years that I have in my life. I don't care about the food. I don't care about the singing and I'm just serving God. Your servant will go, verse 36, a little way across the Jordan with the king. Now, Barzillai, notice that we're noticing that there's these three people, Shimei, Mephibosheth, and Barzillai. Two of them need mercy. But Barzillai is being offered more than mercy. He's being offered grace. And the grace to come and to have fellowship with the king. And I can hear Barzillai saying, you know what? I already have fellowship with the king. The king above. The king of all kings. Your servant will go a little way across the Jordan with the king, and why should the king repay me with such a reward? Please let your servant turn back again, that I may die in my own city, near the grave of my father and my mother. But here is your servant Chimham. Let him cross over with my lord the king, and do for him what seems good to you. And Chimham seems to be a son of Barzillai. He says, take my son with you, man. Take my son. All the blessing you want to put on me, put on him. The king answered, Chimham shall cross over with me. I will do for him what seems good to you. Now, whatever you request of me, I will do for you. Just take care of my son, man. Give him all the status that he needs. I don't need no status, man. The older you get, the less that stuff matters to you. Oh, you're driving an old car. Yeah, but it gets me from point A to point B. I'm real happy with it. He's probably that type of a guy. Verse 39 says, then all the people went over the Jordan. And when the king crossed over, the king kissed Barzillai and blessed him, and he returned to his own place. And the grace of God had fallen all over that man. Now, the king went on to Gilgal. Chimham went on with him. And the people of Judah escorted the king and also half the people of Israel. So hey, that's our man. He's from our part of the country. The people of Judah escorted the king. You could see all the big shots of Judah wanting to be there and jockeying for position to see who's, okay, am I in the right camera spot? Am I, hey, I want to make sure that everybody sees me. Just then, all the men of Israel came to the king and said to the king, why have our brethren, the men of Judah, stolen you away and brought the king, his household, and all David's men with him across the Jordan? Oh, yeah, everybody's David's friend now. You know how that works. You won the lottery, and all of a sudden they're crawling out of the rocks. Yeah. Well, the rest of we're the rest of us. How about the rest of us? Why do the Judites get to Why have our brethren, the men of Judah, stolen you away? Why didn't you wait for us to all come in procession together? So the men of Judah answered the men of Israel, because the king is a close relative of ours. And why then are you angry over this? Well, you know where he comes from. He comes from our side of the mountain. He comes. That's why we're here, because he's a close relative of ours. Why then are you angry over this matter? Have we ever eaten at the king's expense, or have he given us any gift? And the men of Judah saying, well, hey, do we have more stimulus money than all the rest of you guys? Do we have more appropriations coming from the government? Because no, he's treated everybody good. You gotten yours. And the men of Israel answered the men of Judah and said, we have 10 shares in the king. You're just one tribe, dude. We're 10 tribes. We have 10 shares in the king. Well, you know what? We can outvote you if we want to. If we get together, that's a problem. He couldn't get them together. That's, the men of Israel answered the men of Judah, said, we have 10 shares in the king. Therefore, we also have more right to David than you. Why then do you despise us? Were we not the first to advise bringing back our king? No, you really weren't. You really weren't. But it makes for good press. Why then do you despise us? Were we not the first to advise bringing back our king? Yet the words of the men of Judah were fiercer than the words of the men of Israel. So no, you didn't. Anyway, everybody wants to be in the camera shot. Everybody wants to be sure that they see, the logo on their T-shirts, to show them that they get a little bit of extra something out of it. And there happened there to be a rebel, chapter 20, verse 1. Oh my God. You mean, what are you talking about? Well, somebody says, people, we see an opportunity. Maybe the window hasn't closed yet. Look at how everybody's fighting. Everybody's fighting. The 10 tribes are fighting against Judah. The 12th tribe, the Levites, they just don't know what's going on. And it happened, and there happened to be a rebel whose name was Sheba, the son of Bichri, a Benjamite. Notice, where he's coming from again. Coming from the tribe of Benjamin. Saul's line, they're still, trying to keep their boy up there. And he blew a trumpet and said, we have no share in David, nor do we have inheritance in the son of Jesse, every man to his tent, O Israel. So Sheba says, I'm going to be the guy. I'm going to be the one that's going to take over this thing. What Absalom couldn't do, what Mephibosheth was accused of doing, he says, I'm going to do it. I am of the tribe of Benjamin. I am of the line of Saul. He blew a trumpet and said, we have no share in David, nor do we have inheritance in the son of Jesse. So every man of Israel deserted David. Oh my God. Oh my God. Really? and followed Sheba the son of Bichri. But the men of Judah from the Jordan as far as Jerusalem remained loyal to their king. So all the big talk that the other 10 tribes in the previous chapter, well, that's all it was just a bunch of talk. And probably they're hurt now because, Judah's bringing them in and they wanted all the attention. Now David came to his house at Jerusalem. And the king took the 10 women, his concubines, whom he had left to keep the house, and put them in seclusion and supported them, but he did not go into them, so they were shut up to the day of their death, living in widowhood. And we remember who these 10 women are that David had left behind when he left Jerusalem and Absalom was coming in. Those were the 10 concubines that Absalom made a show of in the sight of all the people. It really fulfilled a prophetic word that was a word of judgment that came against David because of the Bathsheba thing. But the 10 women are still there, and David just takes care of them. They lived, just a simple existence to the end. And the king said to Amasa, assemble the men of Judah for me within 3 days and be present here yourself. Amasa, he was a warrior, he was a soldier, he was a commander. He was commander, and we saw this yesterday, of Absalom's army. But David has appointed him as commander of his army. Kind of a political move, to pacify the other 10 tribes and show, this ain't just a Judah thing. This is just a family thing with the sons of my sister. I'm going to put Amasa as the head of the army. And he says, assemble the men of Judah for me within 3 days and be present here yourself. So Amasa went to assemble the men of Judah, but he delayed longer than the set time which David had appointed him. And, here's where conjecture comes in again. Maybe the men of Judah really didn't want to follow Amasa. Maybe he just, decided to take a day off before he do it and found out it's going to take a little bit longer than he thought it was. I've never been down here before. It's a bigger territory. I don't know. But he delayed longer than the set time, and the 3 days was the set time. Let me tell you something about 3 days. You don't want to miss the third day. The third day is the resurrection day. You don't want to miss the third day. A lot of 3 days in the Bible. But he delayed longer than the set time. And David said to Abishai, now Sheba, the son of Bichri, will do us more harm than Absalom. Take your Lord's servants and pursue him, lest he find for himself fortified cities and escape us. So Joab's men, with the Cherethites and the Pelethites and all the mighty men, went out after him, and they went out of Jerusalem to pursue Sheba the son of Bichri. So Amasa, I don't know, I thought I had his name down right at least one way yesterday, but it's not working today. So he sends Abishai out there because Amasa hadn't come back. And he was going to send him out with all the men of Judah, but David says, I ain't got time. We got to take care of this Sheba. Now, that's a problem that we have to take care of. There are others, Shimei and Mephibosheth and all these. They're no problem, but just Sheba, he's a problem. Now Sheba, the son of Bichri, will do more harm to us than Absalom. Take for yourself the Lord's servants, pursue him. So Joab's men, with the Cherethites, the Pelethites, the mighty men, went out after him, and they went out of Jerusalem to pursue Sheba, the son of Bichri. And they were at the large stone which is in Gibeon. Amasa came before them. So all of a sudden Amasa shows up to the to the war party. He says, "Okay, yeah, well, I'm here. Now Joab was dressed in battle armor. On it was a belt with a sword fastened in its sheath at his hips, and as he was going forward, it fell out. Then Joab said to Amasa, 'Are you in health, my brother?' And Joab took Amasa by the beard with his right hand to kiss him." Okay? And we know the sons of Zeruiah. We know how they handle situation. We know how they handled the, what was his name? The Abner situation. You know how his brother wanted to handle the Shimei situation. Joab said to Amasa, "Are you in health, my brother? Are you feeling okay? We were concerned about you. You're supposed to come back in 3 days. You're supposed to come back at the right time, and you didn't come back. Are you feeling okay? Maybe you were sick. Maybe, for a second." So Joab took Amasa by the beard with his right hand to kiss him. Verse 10 says, "But Amasa did not notice the sword that was in Joab's hand," the one that fell down in verse 8. Didn't put a belt on right, I guess, or something like that. He struck him with it in the stomach. His entrails poured out on the ground, and he did not strike him again. Thus he died. Then Joab and Abishai, his brother, pursued Sheba, the son of Bichri. You say, wait. I thought Bichri was the problem. Yeah, he is the problem. But in Joab and in his brother Abishai's mind, Amasa, who David has pronounced as the head over the army, is their problem. And you know how they take care of problems. They just go out and they just kill them. The nephews of David. And David never really fully trusted his nephews. Meanwhile, verse 11, one of Joab's men stood near Amasa and said, "Whoever favors Joab and whoever is for David, follow Joab." Oh yeah, rally around Joab now, because Amasa isn't our leader anymore. This is kind of bloody. I mean, for some of you early in the morning, this might not be the best way to. But Amasa wallowed in his blood in the middle of the highway. And when the man saw that all the people stood still, he moved Amasa from the highway to the field and threw a garment over him when he saw that everyone who came upon him halted. There's confusion in the ranks. There's Amasa laying in the middle of the road, and there's a call out there says, "Whoever favors Joab and whoever is for David, you follow this man." But these soldiers are looking around and say, "Well, that's the guy that David appointed. That's the guy that David appointed. Don't worry about him. Roll him off to the side and put a blanket on him so nobody can see him." Out of sight, out of mind. Amasa wallowed in his blood, verse 12, in the middle of the highway. When the man saw that all the people stood still, he moved Amasa from the highway to the field, threw a garment over him. When he saw that every kind of clean up the mess a little bit, somebody throw a little dirt over the blood that's over here in the middle of the road, because these guys are saying, "Oh, should I follow Joab? Am I really following David when I follow Joab?" When he was removed from the highway, all the people went on after Joab to pursue Sheba, the son of Bichri. Okay, time to, follow in our mission. And he went through all the tribes of Israel to Abel and to Beth-maacah and all the Berites, so that they were gathered together, and also went after Sheba. So as they're passing through, they're getting more soldiers to go along with them. Then they came and besieged him in Abel of Beth-maacah, and they cast up a siege mound against the city, and it stood by the rampart, and all the people who were with Joab battered the wall to throw it down. You say, what's the plan here, Joab? Well, We're just going to tear the wall down. We're going to build ourselves a ramp. That's what the rampart was. We're going to build ourselves a ramp so we can get up to the top of the wall. We'll get over, and we will just go find this Sheba guy, the son of Bichri, and we'll take care of business. And you know how these guys take care of business. They cast up a siege mound against the city, and it stood by the rampart, and all the people who were with Joab battered the wall to throw it down. Yep, it's that time. Play a little song. We'll get us up to the top of the hour. Check out Winning Position here in Las Vegas. And we'll get on to the 20th chapter of 2 Samuel.
Rock of ages, cleft for me. Let me hide myself in thee. Let the water and the blood from thy riverside which flow be of sin the double cure. Cleanse me from its guilt and power. Not the labors of my hands can fulfill thy lost demands. Could my zeal no rest but know? Could my tears forever flow? Oh, for sin could not atone. Thou must save, and thou alone. Nothing in my hand I bring, simply to thy cross I cling. Naked come to thee for to rest, helpless look to thee for grace. While I to the fountain fly, watch me, Savior, or I die. While I draw this fleeting breath, when my eyes shall close in death, when I soar to worlds unknown, see thee on thy judgment throne, just to see you, Rock of ages, cleft for me. Let me hide myself in thee. Let me hide in thee.
That was Rock of Ages. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. You're listening to KLYN-LP, a ministry of Cornerstone Church here in Las Vegas, New Mexico, 2207 7th Street. 21 degrees is the current temperature. Humidity at 39%, and I'm showing a barometric pressure of 29.85 inches. And thing looks like if it's holding steady. Got that prayer line open for you at 505-310-9658 till 8 o'clock in the morning. And Aaron Montoya is with us. Good morning, Aaron. How's everything going on your side? Joe and Flo from Santa Fe, New Mexico. Typical. Yep, typical is right. Just what you can expect from the Carnal. Really, that's what you can expect from Debbie's with us. Chana's with us. Andrea and Tommy are out there. Martin, Mike and Corrine. Steve's out there. And those are the ones that I could see off of our message line, tag lines, whatever they're doing out over there. Anyway, we are at a place called Abel. And this rebel, Sheba, the son of Bichri, is held up in the city, but he's got a big old wall around it. And Joab and his brother Abishai and the rest of the army are getting ready to destroy that city because Sheba's in there. Bible says in verse 15, let me put it on there for you. You can see it. They came up and besieged him in Abel of Beth Maacah, and they cast a siege mound around the city. You build this big old, just keep on bringing rocks and dirt and whatever you can, and you build a ramp all the way up, leading to the top of the walls. You can send your troops up over there. And all the people who were with Joab battered the wall to throw it down. So they're knocking at the wall. Then a wise woman cried out from the city, "Hear, hear! Please say to Joab, come nearby that I may speak with you." Joab has somebody. Hey, there's a lady over here that wants to talk to you. There's a phone call for you. She says that there's one of those things on the pole over there, and you go over there, and that's the way we talk to people, and go get it. It's ringing for you. "Hear, hear, please say to Joab, come nearby that I may speak with you." When he had come near to her, the woman said, "Are you Joab?" He answered, "I am." Then she said to him, "Hear the words of your maidservant." And he answered, "I'm listening." "Okay, you got something to say? Let's say it." So she spoke, saying, "They used to talk in former times, saying they shall surely seek guidance at Abel, and so they would end disputes." She said, this city has a history. It used to be that if people needed guidance, they would come over here to this town. And this, people would come and we'd settle the disputes that they had. "And I am among the peaceable and faithful in Israel. You seek to destroy a city and a mother in Israel. Why would you swallow up the inheritance of the Lord Yahweh?" And she says, hey, wait a minute, man. You're going to destroy history here? And you're going to kill some people that really aren't involved with this Bichri thing, Sheba thing. I am among the peaceable and faithful in Israel. We're peacemakers over here, buddy. We handle disputes. We don't. You seek to destroy a city and a mother in Israel. Why would you swallow up the inheritance of the Lord? Joab answered and said, far be it from me that I should swallow up or destroy. That is not so, but a man from the mountains of Ephraim, Sheba the son of Bichri by his name, has raised his hand against the king, against David. He says, you got a guy in there. We want him bad. And we'll do whatever it takes to get him, because we're gonna squelch this rebellion. Joab tells her, deliver him only, and I'll depart from the city. Just give me what I want, and we'll leave, man. We're not going to destroy your city. A wise woman. Thank God for wise women, Thank God for wise women that just say, hey, I got a solution to the problem. What was the solution? So the woman said to Joab, watch, his head will be thrown over the wall. I got enough clout over here that I can tell the people, hey, let's take care of this guy and let's do it now. And then we'll be okay and we'll be able to live on and everything will happen. Watch, his head will be. Then the woman, in her wisdom, went to all the people. They cut off the head of Sheba, the son of Bichri, threw it out to Joab. Then he blew the trumpet, and the trumpet was the retreat signal. And they withdrew from the city, every man to his tent. So Joab returned to the king at Jerusalem. And it doesn't say this here, but with the head of Sheba in his hand, I'm sure, he's got it there in his saddlebag someplace. And he goes over there and says, guess what I got for you, man? Joab, wait a minute. What? Wait a minute. I didn't send you out. I sent Amasa out over there. I sent another commander out over there. What do you do coming back? Well, you know how things work in Joab's life. You know how he takes care of issues. So Joab was over all the army of Israel. Well, not only did he take care of David's problem, but he took care of his own problem at the same time on the same mission. Joab had to be the leader of the army. He just had to be there, and anybody who tried to get in his way, well, there was a nice little present that he had for you. Well, he's over there, wrapped in a cloth. I think they threw a blanket over him. And so Joab was over all the army of Israel. Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, was over the Cherethites and the Pelethites. Adoram was in charge of revenue. Jehoshaphat, the son of Ahilud, was recorder. Sheva was scribe. Zadok and Abiathar were priests. And Ira, the Jerite, was the chief minister under David. So there's the government of David. He's got a general over his army that he really can't trust. But he has other people in and around, like Benaniah was over the Cherethites and the Pelethites. Those were his, special forces. Adoram was taxman, charge of revenue. Jehoshaphat, he's the historian. He's writing everything down that's going on and making sure that the books, recorder was more than just guy just telling a story. He's making sure that the accounts settle up properly, that Adoram is doing his job right. Sheva was scribe. Zadok and Abiathar were the priest. And Ira the Jerite was a chief minister under David. So we have in the 20th chapter, down to the end of it, we got the government and how it's set up. Now that the Absalom problems and all the other little issues are done with, we have it done. So now is when we go over from 20 to 21. Let's see. Oh yeah, we got a few minutes left. We got some time out there. We can go over a good portion of this chapter. Now, there was a famine in the days of David for 3 years, year after year, and David inquired of the Lord Yahweh. And the Lord answered. This is another strange one. Don't leave. This is a strange one. Okay, we've had 3 years of famine. David goes to the Lord and says, is there something that I'm missing here? 3 years. We do something wrong? Did we do something wrong with Amasa? Did we do something wrong with Absalom? Do something wrong? What's going on? 3 years. And David inquired of the Lord, and the Lord answered, it is because of Saul and his bloodthirsty house, because he killed the Gibeonites. So the king called to the Gibeonites and spoke to them. So the Lord answers him and says, yeah, there is a problem. There's still a curse on the land. And it's coming to fruition. Saul, he killed the Gibeonites. So the king called the Gibeonites and spoke to them. The Gibeonites were not of the children of Israel, but of the remnant of the Amorites. The children of Israel had sworn protection to them. So they had a promise that had been afforded to the Gibeonites, who were of the people of the Amorites. But Saul stepped over that line. But Saul had sought to kill them in his zeal for the children of Israel and Judah. Now, let's talk a little bit about zeal. And maybe this can lead you into your own study. Zeal can be a good thing. But zeal always has to be balanced. Saul went out to kill the Amorites, and ended up killing part of the Amorites named the Gibeonites, even though that they had been granted peace with Israel. Zeal, passionate ardor in the pursuit of anything. In general, zeal is an eagerness of desire to accomplish or obtain some object, and it may be manifested either in favor of any person or thing or in opposition to it, in a good or a bad cause. So zeal is it's a good quality. You have a zeal for the Lord. I believe that it was David that said, "The zeal for your house has consumed me." I might be wrong that it was David, but I know that there's a scripture somewhere, "The zeal for your house has consumed me." But zeal always has to be tempered, because zeal is a fire burning that can turn into a wildfire real quick. And that's what happened in Saul's life. You can be zealous for an issue, as zealous for a thing, for a person. You temper it with justice. And that was Saul's fault. He did not temper his zeal with justice. God had already pronounced justice for the Gibeonites. Therefore, David said to the Gibeonites, "What shall I do for you? And with what shall I make atonement that you may bless the inheritance of the Lord Yahweh?" And David goes to the Gibeonites, finds out what the story is after the Lord had revealed it to him. And he says, "Okay, what is it going to take to make this thing right?" And the Gibeonites said to him, "We will have no silver or gold from Saul or from his house, nor shall you kill any man in Israel for us. Whatever you say, I will do for you," David tells them. Okay, so what do you want? Well, we don't want your money. Then they answered the king, "As for the man who consumed us and plotted against us that we should be destroyed from remaining in any of the territories of Israel, let 7 men of his descendants be delivered to us." Okay, I'll do whatever you want. What is it? What's going to bring justice? What's going to make you so that we can be friends again? Let 7 men of his descendants be delivered to us, and we will hang them before the Lord in Gibeah of Saul, whom the Lord chose. And the king says, "I will give them." But the king spared Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because of the Lord's oath that was between them, between David and Jonathan, the son of Saul. And the king took Armoni and Mephibosheth, the 2 sons of Rizpah. That's not the same Mephibosheth, that's another one. And the daughter of Aiah, whom she bore to Saul, the 5 sons of Michal, the daughter of Saul, whom she brought up for Adriel, the son of Barzillai, the Maholathite. The 5 sons of Michal. Who was Michal? Michal was Saul's daughter that had been given over to David and then taken away from David, and then she had cursed David, when he was dancing. Anyway, Michal's 5 of the sons. He delivered them into the hands of the Gibeonites. They hanged them on the hill before the Lord. So they fell all 7 together, and were put to death in the days of harvest, in the first days in the beginning of the barley harvest. All right, well, that's the way we took care of So they fell all 7 together, were put to death in the days of harvest, the first days of the beginning of the barley harvest. Now Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, took sackcloth, spread it for herself on the rock from the beginning of the harvest until the late rains poured on them from heaven, and she did not allow the birds of the air to rest on them by day, nor the beasts of the field by night. So Rizpah is the mom of 2 of these sons of Saul that have been hanged, and she's over there making sure that that the birds of the air don't pick on them, and that the beasts don't come during the night and tear the flesh She did not allow the birds of the air to rest on them, the beasts of the field. And David was told what Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, the concubine of Saul, had done. Then David went and took the bones of Saul, the bones of Jonathan his son, from the men of Jabesh Gilead, who had stolen them from the street of Bethshan, where the Philistines had hung them up after the Philistines had struck down Saul in Gilboa. So he brought up the bones of Saul and the bones of Jonathan his son there, and they gathered the bones of those who had been hanged. And David says, we got to give these guys a proper burial. Not only these 7, but also to Saul and Jonathan. We got to give them. So he brought the bones of Saul, verse 13, chapter 21, and the bones of Jonathan, his son, from there. They gathered the bones of those who had been hanged. They buried the bones of Saul and Jonathan, his son, in the country of Benjamin in Zelah, in the tomb of Kish his father. So they performed all that the king commanded, and after that God heeded the prayer for the land. Okay? Because the rain had already started. When Rizpah was out over there, the rain was coming down. And the drought was over with. And justice, I mean, we look at this and we say, really? Really? Yeah, really. Justice had been taken care of. Not the way that we would want to handle the situation, but the situation was handled. So he brought up the bones of Saul and the bones, and they were buried, and they performed the king war with the Philistines. When the Philistines were at war again with Israel, they just couldn't stay away from Israel, the Philistines. When the Philistines were at war again with Israel, David and his servants with him went down and fought against the Philistines, and David grew faint. Our King David starting to get a little old. So he's out there in battle against the Philistines, and all of a sudden he's getting dizzy. Then Ishbi, who was one of the sons of the giant, the weight of whose bronze spear was 300 shekels, who was bearing a new sword, thought he could kill David. Ishbi-Benob, one of the sons of the giant would have had to have been Goliath. Oh my God, here's his opportunity. Take out one of his enemies. But Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, came to his aid. Yeah, there comes his nephew again. At the right time, finally, and struck the Philistine and killed him. Then the men of David swore to him, saying, You shall go out no more with us to battle, lest you quench the lamp of Israel. So you're not going to go with us anymore, David. You're getting too old. You could have lost your life right there in that situation. And we're not going to let that happen again. Now it happened afterward that there was again a battle with the Philistines at Gob. Then Shibbachai the Hushathite, killed Saph, who was one of the sons of the giant. Again there was war at Gob with the Philistines, where Elhanan the son of Jair Ogarim the Bethlehemite killed the brother of Goliath the Gittite, the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. Yet again there was war at Gath, where there was a man of great stature who had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in number. He was also born to the giant. So when he defied Israel, Jonathan the son of Shimea, David's brother, killed him. These 4 were born to the giant in Gath and fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. So, the Philistines rise up again. Philistines up to their tricks again. And David and his men have to take care of the issue, which they do. But remember that we had told you when David killed, because the question always is, why did David pick 5 smooth stones from the brook, and he only used 1 on Goliath? Well, there were a couple of sons and a couple of brothers that they had to take care of. And that's, well, they didn't do it with the stones, but that's a nice, pretty way that preachers use and kind of do that. Anyway, there were 4 born to the giant at Gath and fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants and taking care of it. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to put our bookmark on chapter 22, verse 1. Finally, we end up at the top of a chapter, if you're keeping that up. And we are going to play a song. We're going to tell everybody goodbye. I got a good song coming up after our weather report. You might want to hang around for this one. And we're going to cover, let's see, tomorrow, 2 Samuel chapter 22. We're getting closer to the end of, let me see how many chapters we have in this. We only have 24 chapters. We've got 3 more chapters left. Say thanks and see you later, all of our Facebook people. First, the song. First.